Hi everyone, it's Justine and I would like to address the dress. At the last Met Gala, Kim Kardashian wore a dress which looked surprisingly similar to a dress that Marilyn Monroe wore in 1962 when she sang Happy Birthday to President Kennedy. When I did my video reviewing the outfits of this Met Gala, I was accused of not mentioning that the dress Kim wore was in fact the original Marilyn dress from 1962. Some people took it quite personally. How dare she wear that? This is so disrespectful. And also, how could you not mention that, Justine? Oh, it's very simple. I didn't think for a second that this could be the original dress because in terms of proportions, Kim and Marilyn have wildly different body types. Even when there were rumors going around that Kim apparently did a speed diet, flash diet, this thing, and lost 16 pounds, so 7.3 kilos in 3 weeks to get into the dress, I was like, still absolutely impossible. And also, how to put that politically correctly, even if you do a diet, implants do not shrink. So for me, there were only two options possible. The first one was, it's the original dress and Kim does not get in, definitely not. Or second option, it's a well-made copy and that's why Kim is wearing it. I even double-checked. I looked up the measurements of these two ladies on the internet while preparing the video. Marilyn is a 36, 24, 34 inches for 1.68 m, 117 pounds. Obviously, measurements vary a little bit throughout someone's life, but it's just to give you an idea. Meanwhile, Kim Kardashian has the measurements 38, 26, 41 for 1.57 m, so she's 10 centimeters shorter, and the same weight. So for me, it was absolutely impossible. I did not think it was even worth a mention in my video, and so I did not mention it. Turns out, I oversaw a third option, which is the dress does not fit, definitely not, and yet Kim is still wearing it.
Oh my god. Yeah, can we use that tie and tie it and keep it open?
It turns out this is what happened. That explains why Kim wore that white coat, hiding her behind the entire time she was on the red carpet. At this point, let's do real quick a fashion history recap in case you're not familiar with the story of the dress. It was designed by a French designer, Jean-Louis. It's a fabric that is extremely delicate, soufflé satin, which is a pain to sew, if you ask me, and two, very flammable. So the fabric is not allowed anymore, meaning that if the dress gets damaged, you can't replace parts of the fabric. It was meant to match Marilyn's skin tone. There are thousands of these little stones hand-sewn onto the garment. Marilyn wanted the dress to fit absolutely perfectly, like a glove, like a second skin. So she was actually sewn into the dress on the night of the event. So the seam on center back, in the back, was sewn up instead of zipped up. She was not wearing any underwear. And on stage, the lighting was coming from behind her as to give the impression that she was naked. She sang in attendance of the whole crowd that included, obviously, the president. And there were rumors that Marilyn Monroe was dating one Kennedy or maybe two. That has now been confirmed. So the context, at the time, it was a scandal. It was judged as totally inappropriate. And now it's iconic. Now, Kim wears that exact dress 60 years later at a gala. Happy birthday to the dress, by the way. And the public decides that's inappropriate. How dare she? The dress was made for Marilyn, not for her. Museums should not be allowed to lend artifacts like this. It's a part of American history. For me, that's where the controversy gets interesting. The hard question that people are discussing on the internet right now is, did Kim damage the dress while wearing it, or did she not? There are literally photos going viral. The dress before, after, like photos taken, I don't know when versus now. People are comparing, like zooming in onto the fabric. Was that rhinestone already missing or is it only missing now? And like such a hot topic. But here's the thing. Ripley is the owner of the dress. It's a US entertainment-based company. They have attractions all around the world, aquariums, shows, like it's a huge franchise thing. It started as a curiosity cabinet where Mr. Ripley, the founder, gathered like strange items, artifacts from all his traveling around the world and built a private collection. That private collection kept growing into what it is today. Okay, it so happens that Ripley is the current owner of the dress. They bought it completely legally at an auction in 2016 for a whooping $4.8 million, when you think that the dress originally cost around $1,440 to make. This is quite a big jump, but if it keeps increasing in value that much, it's probably still a smart move. Ripley, as I said, is a private collection. It's not a museum. Right now, all the costume museum curators and conservators around the world are going bananas, saying that museums should not be allowed to lend this kind of historical, valuable artifact, and we need new guidelines to prevent museums from doing that in the future. And I'm like, Ripley is not a museum. Furthermore, and it's a point that really bothers me, the dress was sold by the Marilyn Monroe estate in 1999 at Christie's, very public auction. Everybody knew about it. It was sold again in 2016, again publicly. Where were all those museums who are now crying that Ripley loaned their dress? Fashion is always considered like a lower form of art for some reason. You know, like museums spend multi-millions on Picassos and like real art, and fashion, not. So 4.8 million seems like a lot of money, but for the budget of the Met or like those big American museums, it's actually quite affordable. And yet at the time, they didn't see it worth the money because it's not history. It, you know, just fashion, just pop culture. Where were all these guys? You had to buy it if it's such a big thing. So again, it was Ripley's choice to lend it. They did it as carefully as possible, according to what they say. And also, Kim Kardashian allegedly made a huge charitable donation in the name of Ripley. So there are probably also tax savings in there for Ripley. So it's a smart move from them financially. And if I'm being really honest, I'm positively surprised to see so many people care about the dress and being genuinely angry at Ripley for loaning it. But also, I wish people cared that much about where their own clothes come from. Kim Kardashian wore that dress from the ground floor up the stairs and took it off there. She was helped by curators wearing gloves to get into the dress and to take it off. And she wore it something like 4 minutes in total without any body makeup on her and with shapewear underneath. So there were no sharp edges or anything on the inside of the dress. And you know, the dress, it's a fabric that is extremely sensitive and unstable anyway. It was never meant to function. There is no zipper that was meant to be used. It was just created for that one night to be sewn onto the person. So the dress will suffer over time. This is like a given. And it's unlikely that Kim Kardashian damaged the structure of it. This brings us to what I think is the most interesting question in the whole story. Why did Kim strategically choose to ask for that specific dress? Marilyn and Kim have a lot in common. Marilyn was extremely self-worth in her own decade. So is Kim. They both have sexualized images. They are both fantasies. They both will go down in history as the body of their respective generations. Whether we like it or not, Kim Kardashian is so influential over the current beauty ideal, it's undeniable. Also, the Kardashian family is never scared of a scandal. Polarizing is always good. Kim's mom reportedly said there is no such thing as bad press. Let's agree to disagree, but this is how they operate. Now, you might argue that Kim is getting a backlash also because she's touching an icon. Marilyn is perfect because she's gone, and every passing decades makes her even more perfect in the collective memory. Yes, it's a risk. Yes, Kim knew that it would be polarizing, but also, when was the last time that she got so much free press after an event? It was when she launched her shapewear line that she initially called kimono a couple of years ago. Kimono is a word that triggers people in the Japanese culture because for them it's an essential part of their cultural identity. So Kim was accused of cultural appropriation, rightly so. But this time she's taking an icon from her own country with the blessing of the owner of the dress. And I might add, there were apparently TikTok teens who didn't know who Marilyn Monroe was. So Kim wearing the dress was practically public service. Now, question to you, who's the big winner in all this? Right, Ripley. The more or less indirectly got paid for loaning the dress. Non-American people around the world who didn't know Ripley now do. We all do, me included. People who knew Ripley now also know that they have Marilyn's dress. So if you want to look at it in real life, that's where you can buy your ticket. And last but not least, they got as much free press as a Kardashian, which is quite an achievement, which Disneyland can only dream of. So when Ripley says in their public statement that came out a couple of days ago, it was a calculated risk, pretty sure the calculation was extremely profitable. Thumbs up if you like this video. Thank you very much for your support. If you're interested in knowing more about the shapewear launch, which was in 2019, I made a video dedicated to that topic. I analyzed the entire controversy. It's linked here and also down below in the description. However, if it's my first video that you're ever watching, don't forget to subscribe to the channel before you go watch the other one. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.